Good morning, this is Will Faber from Art to Ride, and I'm here with my lovely wife Karen Lashba and our horse Zoolander. Now today we're going to start the first of our Q&A sessions on video. We've been answering a lot of questions that we get from the people who view our videos around the world, and I've been answering them and typing them out, and I thought, wow, it would be a lot easier and a lot more informative for the people if we actually had a dialogue about the question itself. So our first Q&A question is,
how do you get the horse on the bit? I think for a lot of people it's really confusing, and I remember going through this stage too. How much pressure do you have? Should it be the weight of the rein? Should it be 20 pounds of pressure? So that is my question for you.
Okay, so the basic question is, how do you get a horse on the bridle? What you have to understand is what has to take place before you can get the horse on the bridle. And understanding that the horse can only be on the bridle in a position that allows its back to connect the entire length of its top line, from the pole all the way back to the dock of its tail. The thing is true of horse. If anything is out of line in the top line, if we engage the neck over to one side too far, if we have the neck up too high, all these different things that short circuit the horse's ability. In other words, it's like they put a vice on the muscle, so the whole top line cannot light up, and the horse is never going to develop correctly until it does. So the first thing we have to do with the horse, however, when we're talking about getting it on the bridle, is to get it to just simply accept the contact with a bit. And what we do with that, with a young horse, for instance, we put a bit in its mouth and correctly adjust the bridle, and then put a halter or a cavesson on to lunge, so the horse is simply quiet in the mouth. You never want to touch a horse's mouth if it's still doing all these kinds of things. If it hasn't developed a soft, just acceptance of the bridle in its mouth. And once we do that, then we have to find the position of the horse's top line that allows it to flex at the pole. If the horse is hollow in its back and we raise the head up and try to flex it, it won't be able to do it, because it's literally going like this and asking it to go like this. So that's how we very often end up with a break in what we call the third vertebrae. It's not really a break. I'll let Karen explain that a little bit.
Between the second and third vertebrae, there's already a little bit of a gap, more than the others. So when there's pressure put on, this is the space that will start to stretch. So you're actually stretching out those tendons and ligaments, and the gap between the two vertebrae get wider. So it's not really a break. I think people tend to call it that because the horse's neck almost looks pointed right there, and it does look like a break. But it is tendons and ligaments, and of course that's why it makes it a very, very hard thing to correct, and it takes a lot of time to build up those tendons and ligaments back and close that gap.
So, once again, understanding that we have to find the level. So first we have to get the horse to accept contact with the bit. That's usually done.
So what do you mean by accept contact by the bit?
I mean that it's okay with the bit in its mouth. That the mouth stays closed, it's not afraid of the bit.
And so when you touch the reins that the horse gives, the horse softens to contact and not braces. Because that's what I see a lot, is horses brace against it and then the person just pulls back.
Exactly. And then if they can't get the job done, they usually go to draw reins to try to force it over. So understanding that will never solve your problem. And once your horse is broken in the neck back here, it's very hard it's like having a short in your circuit. I'm trying to call you, but there's a short in the wire someplace and you're not hearing me. Well, the same thing happens with the horse. Once that break is here, he's kind of tuning you out. So we have to find, once again, that level of the head and neck, long and low, that allows the horse to gauge its whole top line. Then you'll have no problem at all softening the mouth of the horse.
But what I've also learned from you, though, is that it all starts from behind. The horse has to be energized from behind and comes into the bridle instead of pulling the head back to the person.
Exactly. We change. Remember, the front end is fixed. It can't flex. It can't do anything. Only the back end can change by stepping deeper, by rounding the back, and ultimately, in collection, by lowering the three joints of the hind legs. It's amazing how many upper-level riders I talk to who can't answer the question, what is collection? That's what ends up happening. You want to get the head up here, then they can't do it, then they get the draw reins and they break the horse's head over, and then everything disappears. The back will stay hollow and the horse will be resistive for the rest of its life until someone corrects it. So I hope that helps. Any other further follow-ups you think might help them understand this?
Well, one of the biggest things I've learned is that it never feels like force. If you properly build the horse up, they actually come on the bit and into collection, all of that very easily without the fighting and the pulling and where it feels like a big tug of war. The horse will easily come up into it if you take the time and develop them properly.
Excellent. That's exactly right. So take your time, get the horse to accept the contact with the bit, Just lunging in nice long side reins the way we show you in our video till the horse's mouth is quiet. You should see a nice foam forming there, you know, with a nice soft acceptance of the contact before any contact is made. And once again, you'd be better off just riding the horse forward and leaving its mouth alone than trying to force it. If you're trying to force it, it's wrong. So just remember that. And if you're having to go to stronger bits and more draw reins and more devices to try to get that to happen, you're on the wrong track. And that track is simply you're not allowing the head and neck to be low enough to allow the back to come up so that the horse can soften at the pole.
Yep.
Thank you very much. This is Will Faber and Karen Loshbaugh and Zoolander helping us out this morning. We'll see you next time at Art to Ride. Thank you.